potatoes for Kess and and you start.
Well, some people will think you're actually swearing when you say for Kess.
Yeah, I know.
Well, folks, he's just rocked up. If you don't know who he is, here's a formal introduction. It's Craig Castree. He's just pulled up to do a car boot sale. We've got the book here. We'll get it out there. So soil is not a dirty word. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but before we go there, how you been?
Very well. Very busy.
Yeah.
Very busy. But hey, that's a good thing.
Good on you. So tell me about your busy. What's busy?
Well, spreading the word of, inspiring people to grow their own food.
Beautiful.
It's no surprise that...
We're going to dive deep into this one now.
But look, I guess people don't realise how simple this is, and we have overcomplicated gardening over the years so much that people are frightened of gardening. And wherever you live, whether you're renting or paying off or even living on a balcony, you have an opportunity to grow some of your own food, and you should, because when you rely on others to grow the food on your behalf, you're in some trouble. You have no control over how it's produced, when it's picked, how nutrient dense it is, how far it's travelled, what it's been. It is. It's an endless list.
We were talking earlier, and I'm going to throw it out there right now, to explain the basis of our food chain. And when I say that, I don't just we want to reflect on what we as humans eat, or our animals or farm animals that we have. How far down does it go when we talk about
microscopic
food chain?
Microscopic level.
Because I think it's not misinformation or anything like that. It's just uneducation. No education or knowledge.
Look, a lot of the knowledge that we relied on long ago was right for the time. That was the technology that they had, and they believed
it was going to do good.
Well, they believed in the study. But the problem is that as technology's got better and our knowledge has become wider, we've been able to get a much closer look at the relationships between at a microscopic level and how all of this works. I mean, if someone had have told me 30 years ago that plants feed the soil and the soil feeds the plant, I would have said rubbish. Because I was taught you use fertilisers to grow plants, and that's got us into trouble. That's got us into trouble. You should not feed plants. You should feed soil. It's the soil's role to feed plants, and that's something we've had wrong. And in an ever-changing world, it's silly to think that things don't change. So just because you learned it 30 years ago doesn't mean that today, 30 years on, that what you learned hasn't changed. And it's worth going back to have a look and see what you know, if by chance it might have changed. And boy, has it. Has
it ever changed?
And
to the point where what we were doing back then, thinking it was the right thing, was actually the wrong thing long term.
I say this a lot. When I left horticultural college, if you came into my nursery with a codling moth problem, I would have sent you home with arsenate of lead to spray 3 times on your apples. Today I send you home with a bulb of garlic and some nasturtiums. So how things have changed.
I think you've lost your mind when you do that.
Well, possibly, but that's the reality. I mean, we're using clever, manipulative ways of being able to deter pests and insects by use of companion planting. But it goes much further than that, though, Vasily. What we've been doing to soil, unfortunately, has really got us into some sort of level of health crisis to some degree. Our medical profession is overrun, overworked, and the hospitals are full of people that shouldn't really be in there.
The problem is that the medical profession is trying to treat the symptom. I mean, to some degree, the cause, but the knowledge isn't there, or it's not being passed through properly.
No, that's correct.
So we can't wait for the symptom to occur for us to have a reaction to it. So we've got to start acting on it now. And the message that I'm hearing from you is that we're in strife if we don't look after our soils.
Correct, because it has a follow-on effect. No matter what you feed the soil, you feed yourself and your families. And ultimately, you need to be, we're hearing so much about the gut microbiome today that it drives basically pretty well every function that our bodies perform. So when you get something wrong with you, it's not the lack of medication, it's because your gut microbiome is not operating or functioning properly.
That's exactly
and you've got to keep it up high and populated so that they can express their sequence to perform the function they're meant for.
Okay, so the sequence in that respect means whatever they do, sequence, whether they exude something or do they?
Well, no. So
they
basically,
get digested.
So basically, they feed on prebiotics.
Yep.
Okay, so that's microscopic food.
Yeah.
And that's what we call prebiotics. It hasn't got quite to the microbes just yet.
Yeah.
Probiotics is the process of them processing those probiotics.
Yep.
And postbiotics are the auto-inducers or biochemical signals that they use to communicate with one another, and that's the spent product of that
this
process.
Is the gut microbe biome.
It's no different to the soil. And in fact, you might be surprised to know that much of the good gut microbiome that we have in our gut microflora comes from soil. So ultimately, that's the foundation that we really need to look after much more. I mean, you know, we've probably said this before, but in 1 teaspoon of soil, there's more than 10 billion life forms in it. Each and every one of them have a unique function and role to play. And if you don't look after that, there are some terrible consequences to be had.
Well,
so
you're banging this drum, blowing the trumpet. Cara's giving me a kick down here. Sorry, folks, she's just at my feet here. I'm doing my bit out there. What do we need to do further from here? How much more education, or how do we get the message out?
Well, I think,
what's your views as far as moving forward?
Well, ultimately, it's that. More people need to know this, and it's about trying to get as much exposure as we possibly can, I suppose, with, you know, when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
You know, you keep doing the same things because you believe what you're doing is okay, and when you find out that it's not, then you stop doing that and you do something differently to move forward in a better response, you know. So, you know, to be able to inform as many people as we possibly can. How we do that, I don't know. I mean...
Well, I'm going to start here and say a little bit of self-reflection, folks. You know, look upon yourself, myself, not only just in the mirror, just have a look at yourself, do a bit of a self-analysis. You know, you're feeling pains. We were talking just before we started rolling. You know, you had some pains in the feet. You were talking to your doctor. Is it okay to share that story?
Well, I'm a victim of, you know, I'm no different to everyone else.
Yeah, we're all human.
I'm carrying, you know, my research in the book has discovered 1965, 4% of the population had autoimmune disease or dysfunction. Now, these are dietary-related things. These aren't things you can walk down the street, breathe in and catch. Right? So these are parts of your body that break down.
I was just talking about that the other day. Sorry, go on.
So these are things that are parts of your body breaking down that your gut microbiome does not have the population of gut microflora to respond and correct that. So that's the problem. So I had some arthritic pain in my feet and it was moving around into my ankles and it was very painful. And I thought, I really hope this isn't something like rheumatoid arthritis. So I went and got some blood work done and we got the blood work back and the doctor said, I said, well, what's the verdict? And he said, you know, you're a bit, your age, you're carrying too much weight, probably have done for a while, and he was right. And he said, you know, wear and tear, he said, you know, that's what happens. I said, it wouldn't have anything to do with my gut microbiome, would it? He said, no, why would you ask that? I said, well, I'm just doing some study and I just want to sort of see where you're at with that, you know. So he said, no, nothing to do with it. He said, why? I said, well, I had COVID and I had pneumonia with it, so they put me on a course of 2 days of drip antibiotics. So that cleaned my microbiome right out. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to get these problems. So I just sort of put 2 and 2 together. A couple of days later, after all this had taken place, my daughter, who is a nurse and works at the Sunshine Coast University Hospital, rings me and says, Dad, turn the news on. There's an article I want you to see. And we turn the news on and sure enough, they're running human trials populating patients with this particular gut microbiome microflora, and they are curing, not solving, curing rheumatoid arthritis.
Sorry, mate, but this knowledge goes back decades.
It does.
Right? And somehow it's been swept under the carpet, and all of a sudden the medical industry, or whoever's controlling that, there is somebody out there, because if you go up the ladder, you'll find them. I don't know who they are, but that's caused us to go down the path of medication. You know, with all due respect, you know how I live. I don't touch anything. I don't,
No.
you know, that's how we are. But when you see people around you that struggle all their life, and you see their sort of tunnel vision, not doing that analysis like you've done, the self-awareness, and you saw, and you realised, and you put the two together. That stuff is what we need to get out there.
Well, the interesting fact is that I no longer have the pain.
Yeah, how did you get rid of it?
Well, I started eating more fermented foods. About a third of what we used to eat once was fermented. Guess what's in fermented foods? Bacteria. And we need to populate our bacteria. We are more bacteria than we are ourselves.
Exactly.
I'm not sure whether people understand that, but let me tell you.
I don't think they do.
And when you replace your gut microbiome every 3 days, if you're not populating
it properly.
Yep, exactly. And it needs to be nutrient-dense food.
I've said that a million times. Go.
Pick a lettuce, you know, the milky sap that comes out of the end of it, that is nutritional loss. Within 18 hours of that lettuce leaf being picked, it has lost 80% of its nutritional payload. That's if it's been grown in healthy soil.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not just the nutrient that you're getting from it, it's all of the microflora that these bacteria provide it. And when you consume that plant, you get it populated in your gut. So when you're getting food grown on your behalf, and this is where I will come back to the start of this conversation, if you can possibly grow your own food in good soil that you're looking after, not using fertilisers, whether they be organic or inorganic, feeding plants is a bad way to go, because that's the role of the soil and the microflora in the soil, the microbiome of soil. They solubilise minerals and nutrients and make them available in a plant available format to the plants. And they do that because the plants request them. If they need molybdenum, for instance, and that's 300 metres away, the plant can't pick up its roots and walk over and drink up the molybdenum and come back. That's not what happens. The fungal network, the mycorrhizal fungi hyphae network, fine filament threads.
That's a shit of a word to use.
It is. It's, I want to spell it.
Yeah, I've tried three times, keep getting it wrong.
So, yeah. So,
how many R's? 3? 4? No, 3.
No, 3.
3.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's a good one. So, at the end of the day, I mean, we need to be aware of this fact. And of course, the network that you can't see is, as I say, it's 1/60th the width of a root hair. You know, God's sake, you can't see it. So, and it ferries it back. And there's a marketplace that goes on, because if one mycorrhizal fungi brings back a lesser quality molybdenum than the other, it gets fed before the other. So it is. Yeah. It's incredible.
So there's no communication. There's no exchange of money.
Well, there is. There's a biochemical signal.
Biochemical, yes.
Postbiotics.
Yes.
You see, pre and pro.
But it's all a food process.
Of course, it's a food chain.
It's a food chain.
And the smaller you go, then you get up to all the springtails and nematodes, and then you start to get into the larger insects, you know, that we
keep going?
Often, of course, and then we get up to the millipedes and centipedes and the composting insects, and then we get the birds and the lizards and frogs and so forth. And we eventually get to us. And we are part of nature, and what we've done is
we are part of the food chain. So you've got to think about the food chain not breaking down to the size of an ant. It goes way smaller than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Much further than that. And if we, as humans, aren't eating our food the way we're meant to be, or nature's meant to provide it to us, then what are we really eating?
Well, we're eating false.
We're not eating food.
Here's the thing: to get the same nutritional value out of food grown in 1940. You have to eat twice the amount of meat, 3 to 4 times the amount of fruit, and 4 to 5 times the amount of vegetables.
To get the same amount of nutritional value
out of the same food.
It's food that you would have eaten when?
1940s. So, since we've gone down this path of chemical and mechanical farming, of course, tilling soil is a very bad thing to do. So people say, oh, what about organic? Well, that's okay, but nothing grows in a monoculture crop in nature. And the minute you put rows and rows of stuff, what happens is that the nutrient density plummets, and then the insects move in. Because insects cannot, nor can pests, disease, consume plant material that's highly nutritionally dense. So that's my role as a gardener, is to lift the nutrient density of my plants, and then I'm bulletproof to these things.
Not all of them.
But not all, but most.
Most. Exactly. You'll have some sacrificial plants there that
you'll
pick out because
to a degree, So
for whatever reason, sometimes you'll find a plant that just doesn't want to perform no matter what you do to it, and the insects attack.
True. I mean, that's few and far between, though, all the same. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is why I say that, the fact that you're getting hit by insect, pest or disease is not the lack of an insecticide or a fungicide. It is the lack of soil function, and you've got a dysbiosis in the soil.
We all grew up that way. We all grew up that way as well.
Of course.
In the past, as you said, you had the schooling. Please, Cara, my apologies here. She's really just wanting attention. I'm here. Stop. It's okay. It's okay. Come on, sit down. Just a little segue there with my little puppy dog. She always has a little cameo in here. But you're right about the food chain. We've really got to understand where our food's coming from, and that requires what? Us to go and research, ask the question, where's it grown, who's grown it, how long has it travelled?
Look, I did a recent masterclass, and it was a really good thing for me to do, because sometimes you get lost in your study and you forget some simple things that. And it was an intentional eating masterclass. So the motto was eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And I thought, that's really easy. But then when you start to break it down, let's come back to the first one. What is food? So, and it's about really challenging your values against what you're comfortable with. So asking your food where it come from. Who grew it? How has it been grown? How are they looking after soil? How many times have it been fed? With what? How many times have it been sprayed? When was it picked?
No,
How far has it travelled?
I live like that.
I understand that, but I'm just saying people don't, and they don't know to do that.
That's the thing.
When they go and buy some meat, okay, so how is this grown? Is this grown on pasture, or is it grain-fed, or is it in a feedlot? No one knows.
No one asks.
And they don't think to ask.
They just look at the end product and they're influenced by the
idea
visual.
is if you can't find the answer to the question of the place you're buying it, then you should put that back down and you should go to a place where they can answer that question, because otherwise you're putting your health and your family's health at risk.
So the message here is that we're not all going to be able to grow everything we need to eat for a whole year.
No, not necessarily, but there are other ways. There are community gardens and so forth, and there are farm gate options that are not very much dearer than what you're buying in supermarkets. It's a misnomer that we think that supermarkets are cheap.
Yeah,
They're
all
not.
cheap.
They're not.
All the only place.
Yeah, that's it. You know, I mean, I've got one that I'm going to after here, down in lovely Banks. I'm going to pick up some bits and pieces down there. Now, that's all locally produced. That's the other thing. Yeah. Shop locally. You know, get into the independent places where their suppliers they're filling the shelves up with food for you, not for the supermarket. You know, they can't afford to have crap.
Family-owned businesses. You know, the small communities.
And when the till draw closes, the money gets reinvested in the community. Unlike at the supermarkets where it closes, it goes and never comes back. You know,
and the farmers don't see a lot of that either.
Well, that's the problem. Well, you know, in the book it talks about that. In a nearly $1 trillion industry here at the agribusiness, 98.5% of that goes to the input supply. So seed merchants, soil inputs, fertilisers, fungicides, insecticides, herbicides,
machinery.
1.5% goes to the farmers. Yeah. We've got to this state in our history called the moron effect, where we're now applying 10 times the amount of NPK fertiliser that we started out to get the same result. Yeah. So that's what's happened. When they first started, the farmer profitability was going like that, and then all of a sudden it's gone like that. So, and now it's the 10 times more on effect, 10 times the amount. There's the 98.5%. It's ridiculous. There's something wrong with that situation.
Yeah, and everybody's just, well, look, people can't see that.
Well, they don't know to see it. You know, they don't know,
but they can't see it. All they see is what's on the shelf, and all they want is whatever's on the shelf, and they want it now because they're advertising.
Yeah, that's the problem. So at the end of the day, I mean, it really does require a bit more diligence when you go to pick something up. You know, is it a food or is it a food-like substance? You know, today I do run a self-efficiency workshop. All right, I used to buy biscuits. But if you open up the packet and or turn the packet around and have a look and see what's in them, some of them are 18 and 22 different ingredients.
Yeah, and none of them are actual ingredients.
These are sourdough crackers, and the dogs are bloody drooling here.
Look at that.
These have got 4 ingredients.
Yeah.
Yeast, which is the sourdough mother, flour, olive oil and salt. That's it, no water in these. So no preservatives.
That's why they're like
and they are delicious, let me tell you. And they're easy to...
He's not even going to give me one. Thanks, mate.
We better give one to the cameraman just in case, you know, so give it a try, mate. You won't like them. So,
they're good.
So, but that's the scenario. I mean, this is the other thing. We lost our way a little bit. We're not doing those sorts of things, you know, in the kitchen anymore. You know, we're relying on others to produce these foods. You should turn them over, because if it's got more than those common ingredients, if it's got preservatives or numbers in there, that's a food-like substance. That's something you should not be eating. Because of preservatives, what is the role of a preservative in food, you know?
To kill off the bacteria.
Correct. What's in your gut microbiome?
Bacteria.
So every time you consume something with a preservative in it, you're wiping out some of those.
You're having antibiotics. A preservative is an antibiotic, just with a different word.
That's what
and we're killing ourselves, and we're too lazy to get out there and do it ourselves, or even just go in the kitchen and cook. Yeah. And again, going back to what you said in the 1940s, the nutritional density in our food back then was 3 times higher on average, or 5 times higher than what it is today. So we eat 5 times as much.
Yeah. No one can do that. No one can afford it.
No one can. And they will all starve, or we just go to the fast food chain store and just pump ourselves with preservatives. I live that style as best I can, 80% I'd say, because we're not, you know, completely away from all the junk food. Yeah, we all have it. Yeah. We all have a little bit, but we eat so clean so often that our food plate is down to the size of a hand. Whatever I can fit in the palm of my hand is pretty much what we eat. Maybe 1.5 of that, but mostly greens.
It's hollow, the food.
It's whole food, and it fills you, and you energise. You can actually feel it. You feel your gut actually populating and giving you the energy to get on with life. So if people aren't experiencing that, you really haven't experienced life yet. I mean, and that's part of the whole journey. Bottom line, Craig, if your health is shot through, everything else around you
you can have as much money as you like in the world, mate. It doesn't make anything. It doesn't matter.
Money doesn't save you. That's what puts you under, mate.
That's it.
And that's the problem with a lot of people. We all driven that way, you know. Unfortunately, in the circumstances of the world, the way it's been created, we all are driven by the exchange rate and all that. So, but if we can dumb it down to the point where we have less to worry about on the inputs, as far as, you know, money coming in, and focusing on the outputs out of our garden, we'll succeed.
I say this, I mean, it takes 5 minutes to put 1 or 2 things in your garden every day. Get home from work, go out, pull 2 weeds out and go and put 2 plants in or 2 seeds and walk inside. You'll be gobsmacked in about 5 or 6 weeks' time how full your garden is, how many less weeds you've now got, and now how much stuff you've got on the plate. If you're looking after soil and follow us with regard to, you know, what we're doing in terms of looking after soil.
Keeping it simple.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, you won't be at the supermarkets relying on others to produce your food, making you and your family sick. And whether you're renting or not makes no difference. I've rented for most of my life, and I've done this, and that's where I'm at. You know, I'm now paying off a house, you know, obviously, but you know, it can be done. You know, I know people with vertical space. I've got a little stackable thing. I can put 30 plants. I can grow 30 lettuces or bok choy or pak choy or a mix of all of those things in less than a square metre tall and high. So if you've got balconies, I mean, hello,
We've been
you
there.
don't need a vegetable garden.
You can do a lot of research on that and find all sorts of ways of doing it and ideas. But the idea at the end of the day is to keep it simple, clean, use quality mediums, don't buy that crap stuff, don't go by the price. If you're going to invest in anything, invest in your garden, folks, because that's something that I found that people have just put aside. You know,
yeah, but it's the overcomplication, Vasily, I think.
What?
You know, because they're unsure. They think they've got to be a farmer to grow food, and they don't. I mean,
well, that's part of it. It's the uneducated part of that.
And then it's expensive because they're going down the path of buying all of these inputs that they don't really need.
Yeah.
You know?
And keep it simple, all right?
I mean, biostimulants are very, very important, you know.
You can make your own.
Well, of course, worm juice, vermiculture liquid, compost and so forth, you know, and from time to time you may need,
greens.
you know, some other bits and pieces, but on the whole, I mean, you know, I say to people, if you're in a big, large hardware chain, you know, trying to work out what you need to put in your shopping trolley, you can generally smack your hand and get out of there. You don't need any of that stuff, you know. It's there to catch the gardener.
Yeah.
You know, I used to say sometimes, I'm a fisherman, and when you walk into a fishing tackle shop, there is 1,000 lures. Yeah. Gold, speckle, silver, ones with bells, you name it. And you think, geez, which one do I catch? And there's only really 1 or 2 on the whole 1,000 that catch fish.
Oh, really?
All the rest are there to catch fishermen. And that's the problem. You have all of these products that you walk in there and they're there. They don't really do much in the garden, but they catch the gardener.
Impulse buy.
And I'll get one of these and one of those and one of these because don't forget the...
Well, that's been my whole thing. When people say to me, oh, you've got to get your labels improved. I said, yeah, we've been down that path. And
don't worry about labels.
I know, that's what I say. It's not the outside.
It's what's in it.
It's exactly. We spend all our money getting the inside right. Now we're going to worry about the label on the outside because we're not sure if it's going to work.
Don't spend too much money, mate.
Oh, we spent enough.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying though. No, on the
labels,
packaging.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to avoid it. You know, they charge like wounded bulls too, by the way.
That's it.
So, although in saying that, our planting mix, compost, and cocoa are finally in a labelled bag, or going into it next week. So we're getting out of the clear bag. So. For people who can't make their own compost and they want some quality, well, we've got that too.
Place, for sure.
Well, mate, congratulations on the new book.
Thank you.
Soil is Not a Dirty Word by Craig Castree, folks. Available on your website.
Yep, craigcastree.com.au.
Yep.
$24.95 plus postage and handling, or you can pick them up at my front door and wherever. Have a look at the garden at the same time if you want to. But just make sure you ring first.
Yeah, and don't harvest without asking.
No.
Congrats, mate. Good to see you.
No worries. Thanks. All the best, mate.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Parece.